It's
Great. Well, listen, I want to welcome everybody and for you to take out some time out of your busy evening during this holiday season. It's just great for us to chance to just process this trip, this amazing time in Africa. And we really thank you for the many prayers and many encouragements. I do think that this new experience of sending out a little notice every day, a little text message, really was helpful for many of you to feel like you were a part of our trip with us and to know what we were rejoicing in and what was hard and difficult, challenging, where were the spiritual breakthroughs and so on and so forth. And it just makes a big difference. So we're thrilled about the community that we had with us for the first time. And I can say after 29 trips to China and Mark's 19 trips to Cuba and going all over the world, it's great to go with a community of supporters that are praying and getting updates regularly. So this is brand new for us.
It is.
And we really felt that that having this little video time together would be a good wrap up on that trip for us. So thank you all for this. I'll say by way of introduction, we went to Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia. There was 6 people with us. I think, Mark, you have some pictures if you want to pull some of those fellow teammates up.
Start sharing here.
We were a team of 6. We were from 4 different organizations. This is Edward Mwansa, who is works with the Association for Life in Africa, and his wife is the president of that organization. And Pastor Edward has been working with us literally for years, but now in a much more direct partnership we have with him. And his co-worker was Nisa. Here's Nisa teaching, and Edward and Nisa really want to teach the 4 questions all over Africa, and we want them to teach it. So they came along with us to train with us and to learn how Mark and I do the training for the Gospel of Life.
From Zambia. They came over from Zambia. I don't know if you mentioned their
I didn't. Yeah. So that's where they live. And they met up with us in Entebbe. And then we also had with us Raul Reyes. Here's Raul in his handsome African shirt that day. Raul is from Life Equipped Global, and he does a lot of training, pro-life training using the internet. And many of the people that have come to him for training and counseling and other things are coming from Africa. So we asked Raul to come with us and to invite those he's been working with to come and join us and try to create that synergism. So Raul joined us. Right. And then finally, we also had Carla Sutter. Carla runs a small ministry called Flutter, and her mission has been to place ultrasounds in the neediest places, and that obviously includes a lot of places in Africa. So we took 8 ultrasound machines with us to Africa. We did a lot of experimental things, testing the waters to see how this would work on a larger scale. But Carla joined us to participate in some of the training and to present these ultrasound machines to doctors along the way. So that was our team. Our team leader was our famous farmer, Mark Nicholson. And Mark organized the whole trip in 3 countries, 4 organizations, 6 people, lots of hosts on the ground. So Mark, I'm going to let you continue to lead our review tonight as well.
Sure. Great team of people. I'm flipping through our PowerPoint slides here just so you can kind of see a little bit of what it was like to be there on a daily basis. This is Carla with some of the women, just kind of meeting with women after some of our meetings. Our team came together in such a great way because we had folks from, of course, different organizations and different cultures and different backgrounds, but a lot of unity that we experienced there. John just mentioned that we had 8 ultrasounds in tow with us. If you guys are familiar with the new developments in technology in the ultrasound realm, you'll know what we mean. If you're thinking that we had 8 ultrasound machines the way they were, John, what, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they were huge machines that,
Yeah,
you know,
they were huge.
to get
I mean,
one in would have been an amazing thing.
Yeah, typically, people think of ultrasound as a big thing. It's a big, big piece of medical equipment, but now it's reduced down to a handheld. And
That's right.
here's that's exactly a picture of it. A handheld and an iPad is all you need today. And this is a picture of Carla presenting to this wonderful doctor. This is a doctor who drove all night long in order to get to our meeting, and the payoff is that he got to go home with this ultrasound. So that was very, very exciting. But that's an ultrasound under today's definition of ultrasound. And there are small laptop ones as well. We took 4 laptops as well. I think you'll see those in a minute. But
there's one.
Really, there's the laptop version that we took. We took 4 of those, and we took 4 of the handhelds, and they're proving to be extremely helpful, especially in serving a larger area where you can go out into this town or out into that village or into somebody's home. Very easily, you can carry this in your pocket, the handhelds, or this little laptop one you can just carry easily. So yeah, it's very exciting technology, and I really think this is the future.
This was the fellow that John mentioned who drove through the night to come to our training. His wife is pregnant. He's a doctor, and he had no idea that he was going to be presented with an ultrasound when he got to this training. But he was already affiliated with AFLA. That's the Association for Life of Africa, the folks in Zambia who traveled with us. They knew who this guy was. They knew that he was already up and running with the Pregnancy Help Center, and that what they needed to have to go to the next level was an ultrasound. Again, what Carla is presenting him with in this picture is an iPad in a pink case, and that white thing sitting on top of the pink case is the ultrasound machine, which defies what people think of when they think of ultrasound. They don't think of something that's the size of a cell phone, but that's where the technology has gotten us. John, you may want, here he is kind of talking as he
yeah, this is an example of the power of ultrasound today.
Yeah,
this really is amazing. It works with an iPad. The app goes on the iPad. This has a Wi-Fi built into it, so you can be on the top of a mountain. You can be in the furthest village in Uganda somewhere, and this can connect with the iPad for the purpose of the ultrasound. And all the controls appear right on the ultrasound. And that one picture that you have, we were in Uganda. This young lady is an ultrasound technician student. She hasn't even graduated yet. And we had her come and bring 4 or 5 women in to test the different models that we brought with us for clarity and ease of use and impact. And we handed her basically one of these and the iPad. And in 10 minutes, she was up and using it like she had been fully trained. So there she is using it with the iPad on this very pregnant mom. And she came out of this room just ecstatic that at the ease of use, the clarity on the picture, it's just stunning clarity. And then when you combine that with how versatile it is and how it can go in many places, it's just wonderful. And that proved to be helpful, because when we got to Ethiopia, what happened there, Mark?
Well, we got to Ethiopia with 2 of the laptop units that you see here. And in our suitcases were also 2 of the handheld units plus iPads that you see here. As we crossed customs and declared our stuff, they put us through an X-ray machine, and what they found in our luggage was the two laptop-sized ultrasound machines. And they said, "What are these?" And we just told them that they were personal medical equipment that we were demonstrating as we traveled, because these were not to stay in Ethiopia. They were actually being shown in Ethiopia, but they were going home with Edward and Nisa to Zambia to be distributed by AFLA at pregnancy help centers, where they had already done the vetting of people. Long
Right.
story short, the laptop ultrasounds drew a whole lot more attention and scrutiny from customs than the handheld ones did. In fact, they never mentioned knowing that we had handheld ones in our possession.
Yeah.
They wanted to hold these,
Yeah.
quote unquote, hold these for the duration of our time in Ethiopia, to be picked up upon our exiting of Ethiopia and have a fine, or a customs or tariff assessed at 5% of their value. The value of these things is about, John, are they about $4,500? So they wanted to charge us 5% of the value of the two machines to hold them in customs and not even admit them to the country for 2 days.
Yeah, my experience in Cuba, we've run into some of these issues too and stuff, is that this is something of a shakedown and very possibly a good way for them to take hold of those machines and resell them in some way. But we got through all that. We kind of stared them down. We weren't going to leave the airport without them, and they finally blinked and we got it all the way through. But a big part of our trip was the placement of these units in the hands of doctors. And this is another lady that's about to present this laptop to another doctor in Uganda, and Edward just thanking God. And these doctors were just very, very excited about having this technology. This is the kind of thing that we can help people with financially that they would never be able to afford.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that we can't pay for. You know, they have to learn how to set up these ministries in a self-supporting way. But this is the one thing that we can provide them that's kind of a one-off capital expense that's really, really life-saving and helpful.
And we learned, I think, that there's a great opportunity now for bringing in multiple ultrasounds at one time, getting them through customs and having them placed throughout Africa in the most needy places, the places where there are pregnancy help centers already set up and helping women, but they have not gone to the ultrasound level. They already have a doctor on site. They just don't have the ultrasound itself. And this gives us great hope that we can bring in multiple units a year, both to Africa and to other countries that are waiting for it.
Especially if the box is only this big.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's all. And that and an iPad.
Yeah, that's and used iPads at that. So
yeah.
Continuing on.
Yeah. So continuing on, let's see, we were able to train, John, I think I counted up somewhere during the trip, we were able to train somewhere in the neighborhood of 700 leaders.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a picture of Mark and I presenting certificates of completion. That's a big deal in Africa and a few other parts of the world. They go through this training and they want like a graduation certificate that they're very, very eager to have. And so we accommodated the culture there, and we printed up these certificates and handed them out, and people were just thrilled to receive this certificate that says that they had completed the 4 questions course on the gospel of life and were committed now to reteach it within their circle of influence.
That's right.
And you're right. If we trained about 700 leaders, that included pastors, it included women's ministry leaders, it included pregnancy help center leaders, it included medical practitioners and nurses and doctors. And while the invitation is aimed at the Christian community, for the first time ever, we had quite a few Muslims that showed up for our training. And so they got a very great introduction to the gospel. and an
That was
orientation
something
toward a
new.
Christian worldview of human value, why we oppose abortion, and perhaps also very exciting, a full presentation of how they can experience God's forgiveness. So this was just two people that were excited about completing the course. And I think
So you mentioned, John, that we had people there that were, it was a little unusual to have Muslim people attending our trainings.
Yeah.
And that happened several times during our training, our travels while we were there.
Never seen that before.
Nope.
And the last day that we were there in Ethiopia, we had 3 abortion doctors in the audience, and one of them was a Muslim. So
that. Yeah, this is a picture of the audience. There was no way for us to necessarily know who, number one, the Muslim people were in this crowd, and number two, who the abortion doctors were in this crowd. But John, you don't even know this, but I got a text message from our host, Abi, in Ethiopia this afternoon. He was just really excited because he had been contacted by one of the abortion doctors who said that he was profoundly impacted by the teaching and that he wanted to get together with Abi maybe sometime next week to discuss. Now, I don't know what that means, but folks, if you're listening at home, that means this is the time for prayer for that particular abortion doctor. As Abi, our leader there in Ethiopia, meets with this guy, just pray that he would have a change of heart.
Yeah, in my heart, as excited I am about all the things that unfolded on this trip, I'm even more excited about what I see the ripple effects going to be, including among these abortion doctors that were openly invited to attend and did show up and stayed the whole day. And I'm telling you, they heard the gospel in the fullest, clearest, most winsome way, as Edward and Nisa preached it on that last day in Ethiopia. I'm very, very hopeful that we're going to hear some amazing testimonies to come forward in the future yet. So if you back up, I want to go back to that screen that shows the numbers.
Sure. Let's see. This was the
so
first.
That one right there, for everyone, this is a simple whiteboard in which there were probably close to 80 to 90 people in the room. But we asked the pastors to stand and identify themselves particularly. And there were 39 of them. Yep. And this is where we create the rapid reproduction of our 4 questions training here. So 39 pastors stood up, and that row of numbers along the right-hand side it represents each pastor committing to train certain number of other pastors. So the first person that we talked to said, I'm going to commit to train 32 other pastors. The next pastor said, I can teach 2 the 4 questions. The next one, 20, the next one, 5, and so on and so forth. And when you add all that up, these 39 pastors committed to train 350 other pastors over these next 2 weeks in the Gospel of Life, as we've outlined it in our 4 questions training. Then they talk among themselves and they come up with an average that is in these churches. And in this case, they settled on 40 as a pretty good lowball number. If 350 pastors together teach their church people, that's 40 people, that comes out to 19,450 additional Christians learning the 4 questions, which are designed to produce 4 outcomes: to treasure human life as God created it, to reject abortion as the shedding of innocent blood, to bring the forgiveness of God to the guilt and the grief of abortion, and to rescue the innocent. Those are the 4 action points of this training. So that brings it to 20,000 more people. Then, based on our experience, we expect 25% of all the congregations to immediately want to share these 4 questions with their immediate family and friends. So in a church of 40 people, you can count on 10 of them immediately being willing within the next week or two to share it with another 10 people. And so you take 25% of the 19,000 and you multiply it by 10 people each, and you get to 48,625, or a grand total of these 39 pastors reaching 68,000 people within the next 2 to 4 to 6 weeks. And in every training that we do now, if we have the time, we try to take 15, 20 minutes to let the pastors organize their own rapid reproduction and training of the 4 values, which creates an army of good Samaritans ready to rescue the innocent. And out of that, you start forming pregnancy help ministries that are attuned to their time and culture and location.
And John, you may be getting emails. I am getting emails from folks who attended our training who are already saying, I taught this yesterday to 30 people, or I taught this yesterday to my Sunday school class at church. And we're already getting those kinds of reports back from people who said they were going to do this, and they are following through.
Yeah, I think I would say we almost stumbled onto this reality, but I remember the first time, Mark, you were challenging people to start training these 4 questions within 2 weeks. And that proved to be quite transformational because people took up the challenge. And when you're that specific, it calls for action right away. And literally within a day or two, you start getting pictures and reports back from people.
That's right.
About who they're training.
That's right. Let's see. These are some of the, John, you mentioned that the last day that we were in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, that the majority of the training was done by Edward and Nisa. This is a picture of Edward teaching in Kenya. Maybe you can kind of unfold or let our folks know how we kind of decided to let the training transition from you and me toward these African.
Yeah, we look at
pastors.
Passion Life training really as a discipleship program. I mean, that's really what it is. We're training people, leaders in biblical theology and ethics and applied ethics, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
And in this case, we had 5 opportunities to teach in 3 different countries. So Mark and I taught the 4 questions together on the first day. Then on the second time that we taught it in Kampala, Edward and Nisa took 1 or 2 pieces of that training. And then Mark and I trained the rest of it, but we did different pieces so they could see how each part of it, how I taught it, how Mark teaches it. And then by the end of the training, and we did this 5 times, we sat back and Edward and Nisa trained all of the 4 questions.
Okay.
And Mark and I did some Q&A with the people to test them, to challenge them to reteach it, to make sure they understood it correctly. But all of the training was done by Edward and Nisa. They did a profoundly great job. And we come home knowing that these 2 people now can train this in Zambia, they can in Zimbabwe, in Namibia, they have connections that they're going to be able to train this all over Africa with the pastors and networks of pastors that they are working with. And that's a lot better use of our funds to train local people to do this than for us to go back and forth to Africa. So we're very excited for these guys and what they mean for the advance of the gospel of life throughout Africa.
We take it very seriously. Making sure that our training is something that as soon as people have done it, they can go back and start doing it with other people. And we're not satisfied to believe that that can happen every single night of these 5 nights. We went back after a long day of training, sometimes 10 or more hours away from the hotel. We'd go back to the hotel and we'd get a meal and we would talk for hours about what went well, what could have been done better, picking apart what was highlighted. So this is just an example of how at a certain point, what Passion Life does becomes a discipleship ministry with these pastors that are on the ground that can be teaching while John and I are not there when we're off in another country teaching.
It also gives them a chance to interact with scripture and ask questions. It also gives them a chance to see from one place to another how things go differently, how the Spirit moves in different ways. In some places, people are really crushed. They start openly weeping and grieving. And they're grieving not only their past abortion, but in many cases, they're grieving their lack of involvement and their silence over abortion. These are some of the pastors that were grieving. You know, the Bible condemns the shedding of innocent blood, but it also condemns closing your eyes to the shedding of innocent blood. And I think for many pastors, this becomes a point of conviction, as indeed it was in my own life some 30 years ago, when I realized that the people in my own church were having abortions, and largely because I had never said anything about it in the previous weeks and years that I was with them. So that becomes a very, very powerful moment, but it doesn't happen in all the places. It really is an opportunity for people to recognize how the Spirit moves in one place and less so in another.
That's right. Yeah. And it happens differently every time we teach it. We see people respond in a different way. Sometimes it's one of those moments where you feel like taking your sandals off because you feel like you're on holy ground. You just feel that the Lord is moving in hearts in a way that is, it's obvious that this was not some eloquent teaching that did this. This was not
Right.
sleight of hand that did this. This was the power of the Holy Spirit that came upon people in conviction and
That's
moved.
right. And when that happens, and by the way, if anybody has any questions, feel free to just type them in and we'll be glad to field those for you. But when that happens, this breaking that happens, it often leads to testimony. So now you've got the zenith of what can happen. You've got the combination of scripture clearly taught, explained. It's the point of the spear. And then you combine that with people's testimony about how God has forgiven them or changed them. And you've got something that really is it's like putting a match to kindling. It creates its own renewal. It starts movements when this starts to really take off. And we've seen that in China some years ago. We've seen that in Colombia a lot this past year. And now we're starting to see some of the early signs of it there in Uganda.
That's right. And in all of these 3 countries where we trained.
That's fun.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
This is an example of when we got to Ethiopia, the leaders there had gone ahead and printed our material in Amharic, which is the local language in Ethiopia. And this is what Amharic looks like. It's a little different from a lot of the scripts that we're used to seeing. It's not Sanskrit and it's not, it's not Romanization. It's a little different, but they had already printed it out and had it ready for everybody to read in their own home language. We were working with an organization that produces pro-life videos, that we had them produce the videos both in Amharic, in Luganda, and in Swahili. So those are the 3 major non-English languages in the 3 countries where we went: Luganda in Uganda, Swahili in Kenya, and Amharic in Ethiopia. So we had everything written and everything in video translated into their languages when they got
there. Yeah, we're now working in 19 different languages. And I would say that one of the highlights of our time is after we explain the biblical foundations for the value of life, and that life begins at conception according to both science and scripture, we would show this science video produced by the Endowment for Human Development. And we show it in English because most of the people there spoke English as well as Lugandan or Swahili or Amharic. But then we would show the same video in their heart language, and it would set the place ablaze. They were so excited that they had materials to share with other people in their heart language. It was a high moment for me.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's really exciting. We want to make sure that people have the opportunity to ask questions as we go. We don't want to take any more of your time than is necessary. Just wanted to give you kind of a picture of what happened while we were there in these 3 countries, why it was so exciting for us. as a ministry, and to let you know that we were really thankful to have you along with us as we went. It was really a different experience for us to be able to follow along and know that people were seeing what was going on a daily basis and praying with us in real time and responding to us in real time and asking questions of us in real time. It made us really feel like you guys, as our fellowship, our supporters, were along with us, and that's appropriate since
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I also want to add my thanks to all of you. A lot of you have invested in Passion Life, and not many of us just have money to throw away, and we have to be careful with what we give to. So we're always honored that you entrust us with your charity. And the only way we know how to thank you the best is to show you the impact that we're making with it. And that's why we're excited about sending out these text messages and showing you what's going on. I do want to give you a heads up. Tomorrow, if you look for our Passion Life Fellowship update in your email box, we're sending out what we think is the most God glorifying, praiseworthy story of 2022. It comes out of China. I'm not going to tell you any more about it because it's literally breathtaking. And so look for that in your inbox tomorrow and rejoice with us in what the Lord has done in this particular story. And I hope that you'll take a minute or two to share this particular fellowship update with other people. As I mentioned earlier, Passion Life started in China, and now we're working in 27 different countries and 19 different languages. And we're going to be heading out again after the holidays. We have a team actually in Colombia tonight still that will be coming back on Sunday. And if you've got any year-end giving to do, I hope that you'll think about Passion Life. I know there's lots of demands on your charity, and but if you do have those resources, I hope that you'll remember us and think of a modest monthly pledge. Many mission organizations completely survive on people of average means committing $50 or $75 or $100 a month toward the cause of Christ in world missions. And in our case, what you're doing is you're helping us train people in places like China and Vietnam, throughout Africa, Cuba, and other hard places, teaching them how to stand for life and start to rescue the innocent and do it, what I call providing life-saving help and doing it in a life-changing way. So if you want to be a part of that and you're not yet, then jump on in. So those are my clues for tomorrow. Mark, any wrap up?
No, other than to say it's been an exciting trip. Glad to be home with family now. I know you feel the same way, John. I was gone for a month on this last trip, and we're seeing your texts and your chats coming in on the chat bar here. If you have any specific questions, please let us know what we can answer for you. But thanks for your encouragements. It's nice to see all these encouragements coming in over the chat.
Yeah.
function.
Yeah. So I think that's it. You should pray for the people in Uganda and Kenya and Ethiopia. The level of poverty some of you are familiar with, who've traveled around the world. Some people still living in mud huts. Raul Reyes had the opportunity to preach at a church that had bamboo walls. So you get to see some of the poorest of the poor around the world. It's humbling to go to these places, and it's exciting to see how God is still moving so greatly in the world. And it can be discouraging when we read the news. So I would say turn some of it off and jump into world missions, and you'll be very, very excited about what's going on around the world. So thank you all for your comments, and may all of you have a blessed and wonderful Christmas. And we look forward to sharing with you the great and the hard work of the gospel as we go forward into the new year. I call it cross bearing for the childbearing, and that's our calling as God's people today. Thank you.
Yep. Continue to pray for the people of Uganda, Kenya, and Ethiopia, where we've just been over the last couple of weeks. Pray for those Muslim brothers and sisters who came to several of the trainings where we were, and pray for the abortion doctors, the 3 abortion doctors who came to hear what we would have to say on biblical ethics in Ethiopia. Looking forward to what kinds of stories might still be forthcoming from this trip.
Amen. All right. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.